because the process of mind control and coercive persuasion has been documented heavily in books and articles, and CIFS is a witness to the perpetration of these methods, which we hold are very harmful, can be very harmful, and in these cultic groups are used for harm. The submission from Dr. March, who spoke earlier, quoted a Victorian parliamentarian who said there is a large file in the Attorney General's Department of complaints about all sorts of cults and sects or pseudo-sects in this state, and about the harm that can be caused to people. Governments have known about this for a long time, and although these abuses occur, it's interesting that according to authorities no law has been broken, and when the abusive group is called a religion, authorities are loath to act. People are eventually advised by authorities to go to the police or the courts to seek redress, but the abusive group have deep pockets and will delay and frustrate court action until these tactics so further abuse the victim that he or she is forced to give up after running out of money or becoming psychologically broken. If dissenting questions are raised within the group, these are often automatically punished because criticism itself is a punishable offence. Dissent and redress are frustrated at every turn. However, the harms are perpetrated by renegade groups using the imprimatur of religion, and so can easily be indirectly funded by the Australian taxpayer. CIFS holds that this is an abuse of the taxation system if these abusive groups can retain their tax exemption. I quote the Treasury submission. Stephen Much quoted the Tax Office submission, but the Treasury submission says a religious organisation self-assess their eligibility for an income tax exemption and are exempt from lodging income tax returns. The number of these entities is unknown, and later they admit tax law does not define the word religious. And I put it to you, Mr. Chairman, that the Treasury has no idea how many religious organisations claim tax exemption and whether those that do are really religious at all. And rhetorically I asked, where is the oversight? Where is the stewardship of the taxation dollar? Where is the duty of care to the Australian citizens caught up in these abusive groups? Where is the response to complaints of harm? There is none. There's none. Meanwhile, abusive groups are free to destroy families, provide unfair work conditions, require members to lie to authorities, cause psychological distress and even suicide with unchallenged tax exemption. The abuses of some groups have been mentioned today, but this is only one of the many dozens of groups that CIFS receives inquiries about. Even so, we are sure CIFS only has a small exposure to the totality of this problem. We heard from the first time from these complainants today.
Mr. Smith, can I just stop you reading your prepared statement?
Thank you.
I'm really interested in what practical solutions you see to the problem that you have rightly raised.
Well,
and I suppose I'm just having another look at your submission, and you do say that the bill is a welcome thing. So you support the bill, basically.
We do support the bill, and paragraph 50/5 2b says the benefit must be balanced against any detriment or harm, and the harm is what it's all about. But there is nobody listening or looking for what the harm is, and we find that to be abhorrent, that these harms are occurring, they're funded by the taxpayer, and no one is making any effort. The Treasury does not even know how many groups there are and what the nature of their work is, or for example, how much money goes through their books. It was mentioned that some of the structures of cults won't open their books. Well, I put it to you, they are not required to under the law.
So you're suggesting the law should require an examination of the financial records?
No, I'm talking about the harm primarily. Harm.
We're dealing with a tax-exempt
Yes,
status,
tax-exempt
so-
groups,
So
right? Benefit
what we'd like you to
versus
do
harm.
is suggest to us criteria which might be useful in determining a tax-exempt status for any group claiming to be a religion.
A criteria would be to assess whether there is any benefit, first up.
Yes.
And a lot of groups can say, we do this, that, the other, we're beneficial. But the other side of the story is the members. What is their experience? What harms are they put under by these methods of a small subset of tax-exempt religious groups who use persuasive coercion to further their own power agenda?
There's a common law definition of charity which relates to providing charity, educational services and so on, and you're saying that's not sufficient.
It's not sufficient because it doesn't look at the harm. And in fact our system not only doesn't look at the harm, but it doesn't accept complaint of harm.
All right. So you would like that to be included?
Definitely.
Could I just make a point here, and it's through, once again, personal experience of having my 20-year-old daughter join a cult that was recognised by using that term around the world. The monies that were gathered for the Hope charity, that it said that it was funding through walkathons to give to people that were in need. And I don't have the documentation, so I cannot back this up at this stage. But there was documentation done very much in the English part of this church about the tax avoidance that was happening there. We can very often find it's difficult to know where that funding goes. And I know in my daughter's experience, it was used for a holiday down at the Snow for the members who were very high up in the pyramid. And I think that this is a very big issue. How do we, because we like to take people at their face value. We like to believe that obviously it's not a simple question as to how that can be dealt with. And I think that, we have great respect for those people that perhaps are going to look thoroughly into these issues to see that there can perhaps be some form of committee that can be validating certain aspects that cannot be denied that a group is causing harm. That perhaps is one way, and I think that there is enough professional research that's been done to perhaps gather this to be able to do that.
Right, thank you. We've got Senator Xenophon.
I have quite severe time constraints. I only have 4 or 5 minutes and a number of questions to put to you, so I'd be grateful if you could give me brief, short answers, and if you need to elaborate on it, perhaps that could be with permission of the committee to elaborate on them on notice. Should one of the issues in determining a public benefit test be the ease in which a person can leave an organisation? In other words, if they are subjected to any harassment or coercion or being cut away from members of their family, is that the sort of thing you're saying should be a criteria to consider whether an organisation should get tax-free status?
Absolutely, because we know that the groups we could say are beneficial and name groups that are regarded as religious groups and churches would allow that, and they would still have good communication with those that remained in that church or that belief system. Absolutely, that would be one.
Yes. So, in other words, so there's a level of tolerance there if someone leaves in terms of their members of their family that remain. Mr. Peter Smith, in terms of your understanding of the current system, there are some submissions that say that there already is a public benefit test. That's what the tax office looks at. You're saying that's not the case.